This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Kia ora and welcome to the OI Podcast. The OI Podcast is brought to you by the Otago Institute for the Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of Te Apirangi, the Royal Society of New Zealand, where we have fascinating conversations with people from the worlds of arts, sciences and Mātauranga Māori. And it's brought to you by Otago Access Radio, or FM 105.4 FM, or anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, somewhere else, I don't know. I just Google it and it'll put me in the right direction. So, and I'm Trudy because Dr. Barb had a trip on her trip, and while she's supposed to be back in the studio today, she's got a broken elbow and is stuck in Europe, which, it's not so bad. The broken elbow, I don't think I'd like, but, stuck in Europe. She could have rung in, it's only 2 a.m, but, I'm not quite sure. But we welcome you back, Dr. Barb, when you arrive back on our sunny shores. But anyway, today we have with us in the studio the amazing, long-time listener, but first-time caller, as they say, Dr. Gretchen Brownstein. Now, Dr. Brownstein, or Gretchen as I will refer to her, otherwise it'll just get a bit loose, is a researcher and ecologist and has done some pretty amazing work, and we're going to talk a wee bit about that. But hello, Gretchen, and welcome to the studio.
Hello, Trudy. This is awesome.
Oh, good. I'm so pleased you're enjoying yourself. You're only 2 minutes in. Okay, so we'll just talk a wee bit how because you're a botanist or an ecologist or
I would call myself a plant ecologist.
Plant ecologist.
I like how plants interact and how plant communities work, and the animal side of it, meh.
No, they just get in the way, don't they?
Yeah.
You and Dr. Barb would have a lot in common, I think. Yeah.
Well, we have the same PhD supervisor.
Right. She geeks out a bit when it comes to plants when we're on the radio show, like I should go just leave the room and leave the two of them to it, but yeah. So how did you arrive at that? So I see you at Otago, good old Otago. You did a PG Dip Sci in botany, but you must have done something beforehand to get in the PG Dip.
Yeah, so I did my undergrad in the States.
Surprised there. You got an accent then, no?
Not that strong anymore. I've been here nearly 20 years.
Right.
I did my undergrad in the States, and during that time, I visited New Zealand and fell in love with the place. I had to go home and work and finish my undergrad off, but eventually I got into postgrad here, which is how I got back into New Zealand.
So what was your undergrad in?
It's a liberal arts degree, so just about anything and everything I tried to study.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think we need more of those liberal arts degrees. Sorry, science people, just someone's got to be able to talk about what you're doing. So, yes, that's great. Cool. And so, but why botany?
Why not? Plants are cool.
So it's just really you're a plant geek or just plant geek. Yeah,
straight up plant geek.
Right.
Yeah.
And then your PhD, what was that about?
Oh, so my PhD was a little bit on the theoretical side, as they tend to be, but it was all about how and why you can have species coexisting. So if you start with the theory that everything's in competition with each other, you should then end up with only one thing existing, but they're not just in competition. There's other things going on. There's other interactions. So looking at how, at the very small scale, those interactions happen with plants and how they divide up resources and how they share resources.
Oh, that's interesting because there's a theory in economics called collective competition, which is kind of the same thing. Yeah. If you've got an open market, you can compete, but sometimes you can work it out. So this firm might work in that area and you might work in that area, but together you actually contribute to the whole market. Is that kind of...
That's exactly it, actually. Yeah.
Right.
And how you can make, while using those different niches, so those different parts of the environment, plants can then actually create more niches. And so that you can create more space for each other by sharing and distributing resources and using different parts of that ecosystem.
So how do they work that out? How do they...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we don't know.
That's a long and complicated answer.
It's all good. It's not like they sit around and say, okay, this week committee, we're going to go out and colonise square X, whatever, and we're going to need these resources. So it must kind of work trial and error, I suppose. If I go out and try this and it doesn't work, I don't know, it's like the first humans. How do they know that fermented wheat would produce better. Somebody must have tried it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and it's finding those little things that work. So there's those little tiny adaptations that you make, and if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then you go on and you try something else. And species, you can get some species can pop into a community and they exist there for a little while and then they disappear and you get something else happening. So yeah, it's always evolving and changing. Ecology and the world around us is really unstable. There's always cycles going on. And I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about it is what those cycles are and how they move.
So if we think about, ecology is the study of communities, kind of, and how those communities interact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see it through like the plant's eyes, but there's animal ecologists who see those interactions through like animals, and their eyes, and there's insect ecologists. And so, yeah, we do, well, we say we're, looking at everything. We always have a view or a lens that we're looking at ecology through. And
so, but they must come together to get a huge ecosystem, kind of. Is that how it works? Oh, look at that. Sixth form biology paid off at last. 50 years later.
Well done.
Nice. But you also have got a few sidekicks going on. Like, do you want to talk to us about the botanical? No, that's the garden. It's a botany society.
Botanical Society of Otago. Yes. We are a small society. We look at anything and anything botanical. So from drawing to looking at rare plants to going out, we do trips across all of Otago and into Southland and Canterbury sometimes, just going out to weird and wonderful places and having to look at what's growing there and seeing plants in their natural habitat. We also have monthly talks that you can come along to, all about anything botanical. Again, it can be anything from photography to art to we had a local podcaster come on and talked about how that recently. That's anyone and everyone's welcome to join. Please come along. Yeah.
So it's all about plants. If you're a plant geek, this sounds like the society for you. And please, rest assured listeners, you can't see because we're radio, but it's not full of middle-aged Victorian men with beards and bushy hair and walk shorts and sandals and socks. No,
I'm using the beard. Yeah. Everything else about describes me.
But no, that's terrible, Trudy. They're wonderful people and we should be far more accepting. But no, it is, and it's great. There's a whole lot of these little societies around if you if that's your thing, that you should really get involved in. Yes.
Other side gigs I'm allowed to talk about?
Yes, go for it.
Yes. So on another bit that I do around the art is around willows and weaving. Oh. And so we've got a small group that gets together and we grow willows, a bunch of different varieties that have different properties that we use for weaving. And then we start, we use them to make baskets with. So we've got about 40 odd of us and we get together a couple times a year to do that.
So do you grow the willows yourself or do you have a supply?
No, we grow them ourselves. So that's the whole part of the process is growing and harvesting willow and looking after it and drying it. And then there's a process around soaking it up.
I was going to say you got to soak it for a while or something and then dry it and then you can weave it? Or?
Yep. So you harvest it around Matariki, around midwinter.
Cool.
And then it needs to dry for about 6 months, and then we can use it to make baskets. And before you use it to make baskets, you've got to soak it for about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how big it is and the variety and what you're making.
So you cut it, dry it, then you soak it.
Yeah.
So why can't you use it when it's green?
You can, but when it dries that first time, it shrinks quite a bit.
Right. Yeah. Does it get brittle?
Yes.
Right.
So there's different varieties that have different properties, and so that's why we grow about 42 all different species or varieties.
Really?
Yeah. So if anyone wants to geek out about plants and art together, come join us.
Yes.
Coast Otago Willows and Weavers.
Otago Willows and Weavers. I'll write that down later. Oh, very nice. Mm-hmm. What else you got going on then?
Oh, is that enough? There's a large garden at home.
Yes.
A pair of dogs.
And some cats, I believe.
Oh, yes, and some cats. And now we got one sheep as well. So it's expanding the menagerie.
So I thought you said you went into animals.
Oh.
Okay, but let's get serious about science because this is what we're supposed to be talking about. So you're a researcher at Manaki Whenua, which is now part of the New Zealand Institute of Bioeconomy Science, or the BSI, as we like to call ourselves. But you've, as a researcher, you've also worked in the technical aspect. So that's the area where you get your hands dirty, where you do the work and somebody then takes the results and writes it up.
Yeah, that's a good example. So science is requires a huge group and a lot of diverse skills to try and answer a question. And so we tend to split it into sort of lead researchers who are coming up with the ideas and getting the funding. And then around those lead researchers are all supporting researchers and technicians. And technicians are the ones who are sort of taking the idea and they're trying to come up with a way of collecting that data that is required to answer that question. So we'll say we want to go out and do a survey for X. And so figuring out how to do that survey, that'll get us the answer that we're after. And so that's what the technicians' roles are. And then also going out and doing those surveys, which is the fun bit.
So you develop that kind of experiment, for want of a better word, or how you're going to...
Yeah, we do a lot of method development.
Right.
Spend a lot of time hammering things together, building things, laying out tapes, figuring out how to lay out tapes, figuring out how to deploy different devices, so like camera traps, so like those automatic cameras, listening devices, so acoustic recording devices, and making maps, do a lot of map making to figure out the best way and best place to put these plots or to gather this information from. Yeah.
So it's quite a versatile role. You'd have to be kind of a jack of all sorts of things, or Judy.
You become one of those, yes, right. Over the years.
And so was that kind of what attracted you to this kind of work? Is it the question, or is it contributing to finding the answer that you enjoy?
It's finding the answer. So the bit that I really enjoy is, someone can, if you have a question, coming up with a way of answering that question is really fun and creative. And the teamwork that goes into that, because science is a lot of teamwork. There's lots of different skills needed and lots of different brains on it. So it's those interactions that are really a lot of fun.
Because it could be like when someone poses an idea, and then when you're looking at how we're going to research that idea, you could probably come up and say, well, hold on, perhaps if we rejig the idea a wee bit, we'd get a better answer. Does that happen quite often? And how is that received?
Yeah, it does. Well, yes, it does happen a lot often. And there is a lot of toing and froing over the best ways to go about answering those questions. And you only have so much time and so much money a lot of the time. So that's a big limiting factor. And so trying to figure out the best way to get the data with the limited resources that we have, that takes a lot of thought and effort.
Right. Because it's not something, we think this is a really good idea, we'll go out and do this. Often it's come externally. Somebody's asked for...
Yeah, a lot of it's externally. So at the moment we do lots of stuff around the state of environment monitoring. So that's just asking the question, what is out there? And how do we go about finding that in an efficient way of using our people and our resources?
So when you talk about plots, those things I hated in biology, like you mark out a plot, like it's an area on the ground, and then you got to go count the number of... That's basically it.
And there's huge numbers of versions of plots. We all have our favorite ones.
Versions?
Well, you can have different sizes, different extents. You can have ones that they're square or round or long and skinny.
But you're still counting things.
You're still counting things in it, and that is a lot of science, is counting things.
Counting things. Yeah. Couldn't you use a drone?
Oh, we've been trying for years to use drones. I did a postdoc in Australia in 2012 where we were talking about that drones are going to take over and we wouldn't have to go outside ever again. So,
But there's no fun in that, though. Going outside must be part of the attraction.
Yes, but everyone always thinks it'd be easier and cheaper if we put a drone up, and so far it hasn't been. But you can collect data at a different scale with the drone, which is really good. So plots, it's really expensive to put a human on the ground, and you get to all those different places, especially in some of the backcountry. And so using aerial imagery, using some of the satellite imagery can be useful and can be really good. But you only get what's on that top layer. So if you're looking down through a tree canopy, you're only seeing the tops of the trees. You're not seeing the epiphytes, the plants that are growing on those trees. You're not seeing what's growing in the understory. And that forms a huge part of that ecosystem. So it's important data that we still need to gather.
Right, yeah, because if you think, you're right. Well, now I think about it, I was more thinking about flying a drone over tussock country, but that might be easy. Is there a lot of diversity in the tussock country?
Yes. Oh, there's someone.
Yeah, crikey.
Trudy.
Wow, it just looks like tussocks, but yeah.
So, tussock country, you're going to have to get down on your hands and knees and get your hand lens out and have a look. But there is a load of little tiny plants that grow in and amongst those tussocks. So those tussocks are creating a little environment in and of themselves.
Right.
And then around the tussocks is a whole other little environment. And in New Zealand, we tend to have species that are sort of here all year round and they're perennial, but we do have 3 that are an spring annual herb, which is something you'd find more likely in like the desert.
Oh, cool.
But we still have, we have 3 of those here, and tussock country is one of the places you would find those.
And is that because it's kind of like, it's arid, like deserts?
Yeah, it's that arid sort of central Otago country.
Well, there we go. So, and that's why we don't really like to burn the tussocks, is that right?
Yeah.
Because it must just, like those areas that those plants live in must get disturbed.
Yeah, it gets disturbed. And those tussocks can be, even though they're just a piece of grass, can be hundreds of years old.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that.
So we have
lots of stuff here today.
Yeah, they can be quite old. We've got a long-term experiment in Takahe Valley in the Murchison Mountains where we've I haven't been for 50 years, but researchers have for the last 50 years been going back and counting the same tussocks every year and looking at how many tillers, so how many new leaves they put on, and how many flowers they put on every year, and relating that to climate.
Man, so these are the same plants.
Same exact plants.
Years.
Yeah.
Well, let's save the tussock, people. I think that's incredible. Sorry, I'm just going to get out here for a minute. Right. So now I know what you do when you go to the Takahe Valley. That's kind of what I heard, but that's, yeah.
We do work.
Yes, no, you do work, I know. And it looks amazing, and yeah. Okay, so, and then plant, like those, when we look at forests, there's the top layer and then the different bits underneath. So they're kind of a vertical ecosystem, would you call it, whereas tussocks might be a more horizontal one, or...
Oh, it depends on your scale. So again, so in forests, you can get those really tall species, like the rimu, kekateas are tallest native species, up to 30 meters in some places, and you can get lots of different things underneath it. But the tussocks, you can still have that vertical stratification as well. It's just at a different scale. You're looking at centimeters instead of meters.
Scale's important. I get it now. Yeah.
Yes, ecology is all about scale.
Scale, right.
Yeah.
And ecology is a relatively new science, would you say? Like, come out the 1970s or no?
No. Like some of the theories that I was trying to understand during my PhD were from 1910, I think.
Oh, okay.
So it's been around a while. We've been trying
100 years.
We've been trying to understand plant ecology. Well, my study for a few hundred years now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So anyway, you're currently working on, which sounds like an oxymoron to me, naturally uncommon ecosystems.
So these are fun. These are a lot of fun. So this is a set of ecosystems that are so naturally uncommon. To be naturally uncommon, they need to be less than 0.05% of Aotearoa's land cover. So very small. So less than about 135,000 hectares. So it's not big at all. It's tiny. These things are tiny. There's 72 of them currently listed.
Okay. So, and where are they listed? Where can you find, or are they...
So there's a paper published in 2007 by a group of researchers in our organization, by Williams et al., 2007. And they came up with a framework for defining these naturally uncommon ecosystems. And these ecosystems aren't based on vegetation. They're based on abiotic features. So what sort of rock they're sitting on? Are they in like water or next to water? What sort of disturbance are they putting up with? And so you can have sort of cliffs are a naturally uncommon ecosystem. So there's plants and invertebrates are associated with those steep cliff faces. Rocky outcrops or tors. Around Dunedin, other ones we have are coastal turfs. So there's this zone around the tops of sort of cliffs and these that have high wind and high salt, and that controls the type of plants and animals that can live there. So they're abiotically driven,
Right.
And abiotically defined.
So what's abiotic?
Abiotic, non-living things.
Oh,
So like if we're talking about like wind and
Right.
snow and water and rock types. So calcareous, so like limestones.
Oh, yeah.
They have a different sort of mineral makeup, and that drives what can live there. Only certain plant types can live on those. What else we got? There's other places where there are lots of disturbance. So if you get like scree slopes,
Oh, yeah.
so you're going to
Yeah.
have to be able to put up with those screes moving and those different, not a whole lot of soil. So what can live in that? What sort of
Lichens.
insects? Lichens, yes, lots of lichens. A few plants, lots of insects can live there. Yeah.
And I suppose when you think about it, now you've described it so well, they are kind of small areas in New Zealand. Yes. Yeah, those kind of, tops of the cliffs and the ski slopes in the overall scheme of things. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all like these in-between zones. And what's really amazing about them, even though they cover such a small percent of Aotearoa, they make up something like 86% of our biodiversity is found in them, in the plants, and half of those are threatened. So it's huge. A huge amount of our biodiversity is found in these very small, sort of edgy, really tough to live in habitats. And so it makes them really interesting places to study. And
I'll say, yeah. We're now on Banks Peninsula looking at dolphins or something. And in the kind of, in the cracks, we can say, but they're not cracks, they're probably big gorges. There's, like a whole lot of plant growth. So I kind of thought they would be those kind of areas because they're,
That's exactly it. Yeah, those sorts of areas. So those are some coastal cliff systems, those coastal tors. They'll have, because of the salt spray and because of the rock that they're living on, they'll drive what plants and what insects and animals can hang out there. On our naturally uncommon ecosystems are driven by our bird species, so shags, and other nesting species because of the disturbance that they do and all of the pooing. So they come on land and they're pooing and putting guano out. That changes the nutrient levels and the disturbance levels, and so that drives what sort of insects and plants can be there.
Okay, so if those colonies were to move, then those ecosystems would move with them, and the ones that are currently there, they would change?
Yeah, and so that's another thing about these ecosystems is that they're not, well, most ecosystems in general, is they're not actually linked to one spot. It depends on where those drivers are and where they're going to move to. And so if you had a seal holdout, that's another naturally uncommon ecosystem because those seals coming on the land and disturbing the soils and the rocks and bringing on their poos and all that sorts of stuff. If they started holding out somewhere else, you would probably get this ecosystem developed there.
Right. And when you talk about disturbed, it's not like they're going out there a big digger. They're just doing their thing.
They're just walking across it.
Yeah. But as they do that, they disturb. For one of the better
and
word.
it's actually, a lot of our plants need that disturbance.
Oh, okay.
And so it's actually a useful thing. So you're getting sort of, the same reason that you dig in your garden. You're creating a new spot, a new, yeah, something can take up, yeah.
Oh, so I hadn't thought of that like that before, but that's why I'm not a scientist, so you are, and so thank you very much for enlightening us. I'm going to look at these things with quite a different eye from now on, so yeah. And so is there one special area you're looking at the moment?
Oh, my pet project is coastal turfs, which I love, and there's a few around Otago that we're working on designing some monitoring for the Otago Regional Council.
Okay.
So Otago Regional Council needs to do state of environment monitoring, and some of the environments I want to look at are these naturally uncommon ecosystems. And so the question that we're working on is how best to monitor these systems and what's an efficient way that we can do that in a long-term and sustainable way so we can know how we're tracking.
So this is coming up with the design to answer the question again, right?
So we're back to figuring out how to answer a question. Yeah.
And so these coastal turfs, are they like layers, or like I think a turf is, grass or a cricket pitch or something?
They're very much like they're actually more like a bowling green. So some of the species that you find in bowling greens is lawn bowling.
Yeah.
Lilliputiums, or leptonellas, sorry. Those are one of the main species in coastal turfs.
Okay.
So they're only about 2 centimeters tall, 3 centimeters tall. They have 5 or 6 species that are common and widespread in them, but there's a whole maybe 10 rare species that you can find once in a while, which are really fun. And so, they're little low things. They look like beautifully mowed lawns to me with lovely flowers.
And they're nice to walk on too. They're kind of soft and, Whether we should be walking on them or not, I don't know, but they are nice to walk on.
Yeah, so a good place to see them would be Tunnel Beach, but I wouldn't recommend walking on them there, please. We're trying very hard to keep people off the turfs there.
Look with your eyes.
Yes, but it's an awesome place to go down and have a look at coastal turfs.
And that's just reopened, Tunnel Beach, I understand.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, cool. And you have a story about you were doing some turfing the other day and...
Oh, yeah. So I was working on the peninsula the other day, and I had... I was doing my sampling, and I was working around. There's a few, seals hanging around and a few blackback gulls hanging around. And I was snapping pictures. I looked at my picture later, and I realized that I had a picture of a seal with his little flipper over the top of a blackback gull nest that had a chick in it. And so I had 3 naturally uncommon ecosystems in one photo.
Right. Oh, very cool. And why would the seal have his hand over the black chick?
I don't know. Maybe he's cuddling it. I don't know.
We don't know.
We don't.
They don't eat them, do they?
They don't eat them.
That's right.
Not as far as I know. Someone may correct me on that.
Yeah, coolers, if you know whether they do or not. I don't know.
I only know about plants.
Yeah, plants. Okay, so why was that 3 systems, the seal, the bird, and the plants?
Yep.
No?
Yep. And so that's one of the difficulties with naturally uncommon ecosystems, because you can have 3 overlapping things. So I had the plants that looked like a coastal turf, but I also had blackback gull nesting there. And so you had the inputs of the guano and the disturbance from blackback gulls. And we also had the seals hauling out at the same spot. And so trying to decide, and this is in our fun discussions we've been having with my mates at work, is around what would you call that system? Would you call it all 3? Would you call it just one of them? It depends on your values, really.
Does it depend on who makes the most disturbance, or who is the most unnatural or uncommon? Sorry,
or what your personal values are, like what you want to look after the most. And so I think that's a lot of our problems with some of these things, is that you've got to make choice. You got to make choices. And I would say you could call it all 3 and be happy with it.
I was going to say, why can't we look after all 3 if they're in the one place? Because if you look at, if you're going to focus on the plants, does that mean the gulls and the seals can't go there, or they must interact in some way for them to be?
Yeah, I think they can. And so in this case, I think all 3 are coexisting quite happily. And so we don't have to do, and I guess it would come down to if you were trying to do some management actions around promoting one or the other. And you'd have to think about what those impacts would be on the other 2 that you weren't trying to manage for. Or if you're going to do a management action that you're going to be able to manage and keep all 3.
All 3. And how is there a process to decide, not just in that example, but generically around which one you decide to project manage?
Again, it comes down to values. It's values of people, what we most value, and is it these birds? Is it the sea lions? Is it the plants we're looking at? And so, a lot of it's values driven.
So it's not numbers like they're an endangered species, so they take priority, but I suppose that's a value.
Yeah, they're all endangered, and they're all, they all need our help equally, and it's deciding how we split what little resource we have to help them.
God, you're playing God, are you? No,
not yet.
Yeah, I just thought, interesting, because if you change one dramatically, then it must have impacts there and elsewhere. Yeah. Is that, kind of when you mark around of ecosystems?
Yeah, and it can. And so that's one of the things you have to be really careful about doing, is thinking about what those downstream impacts might be. And so knowing and making your choices, what your potential impacts, intended or unintended, might be. And so that's why we talk a lot about monitoring and looking after things and making sure what we're doing is having the impact we're hoping for.
So how do you allow for time lags? Because some time lags could be really short, so you can see quite quickly the impact you're having, but others could be generational. Yeah.
And that's the hard thing. Yeah, that's really hard. So, I mean, when we start monitoring, like we normally do sort of things really close together, so we can get a couple time points and get an idea of like what the state is. And then as you go on, you maybe would spread those time points out further and further, you know, every 5 years, maybe every 10 years. And then the really hard thing is keeping that monitoring going for the 50 or 100 years you're going to need in order to see what you're potentially doing.
Right.
So ecology happens more generational, a human generation, rather than 10 years.
Right. So that's why we really need those longitudinal studies to give us that longitudinal data. If anybody's into funding out there is listening, because otherwise we won't get the whole picture.
No, you won't. And so, it's really, really important to keep those big long-term studies going.
And the Takahei Valley study that contributes, so did they start off with like that, doing lots of little monitoring, and now we just kind of do it annually or something?
Yep. Yeah. So, Takahei Valley's done annually now. There's 6 species of tussock Kanakaloa up there that we monitor. And so that data set is incredibly valuable, looking at the flowering and tillering rates and relating that to climate change.
And what sort of data have we gleaned from that around climate change?
It's interesting. So one of the things that was a question was like this year, everyone will notice that there's like the cabbage trees and the flaxes are flowering. So that's masting, and the beech are masting this year. And Kanakaloa, so our tussocks do the same thing. They do masting. And we think that that's triggered by temperature. And so that's one of the studies one of the things we're using the study to look at is what are those temperature differences it takes to trigger that flowering and those big massed flowerings.
So would you look at also when that temperature change happens? So, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was thought that it was the year prior to initiate that flowering, that masting season, and it's thought that it was a certain step. You go over X degrees and then you get masting, but actually it's probably a lot more complicated than that, in that it's a temperature differential that you're looking for to trigger that masting, that big flowering season.
Yeah, because I was looking at the flaxes in the gardens today, in my garden, not have been to the gardens, and tuis, they're over them. And the flowers on them this year is going to be a cropper season, I think. And I thought, why now? And then related to a conversation we've had in the tea room around trying to grow, what's that herb that goes everywhere? Mint. Yeah, we can't grow mint because it's so too dry. Well, I went out the other day and looked and said, I might have to control my mint this year. So it's been warmer, more humid or something. And it's going to be an interesting year. So the flaxes are definitely going for it this year. The cabbage trees, the coca is going for it. The beech is having a massive massed year as well. And I think the Kanakaloa, the tussocks will be as well. And so, it's good year for birds, I think. And then also those little insects that live off those plants as well. So they'll be thinking, there's lots of food there, so we'll grow our colonies, and then next year there won't be so much food, and then there'll be mass starvation in the insect market, perhaps.
Yeah.
But that's life, baby, I suppose. I don't know. It's why you do ecology, isn't it? To work out how these ecosystems all interact together.
No, and that's the fun thing to watch, is that we think we have an answer, and then something comes along and it shows that you're wrong, and then you have to rejig it again. It's always a theory.
You have to have quite an agile mindset then and take it on the chin. Oh well, yeah.
A lot of that. A lot of going. Oh well, got a new data point. Guess we're going that direction now.
Have you ever had the opportunity to say, told you so?
Oh, yes.
But that's all about, like sharing knowledge and, developing and adding to that whole pool of scientific knowledge.
Very much so. Yeah.
They're not being petty, but it must feel nice.
Yeah. Once in a while, because it's very few and far between you get those wins.
Yeah.
You're wrong 99.9% of the time.
So what other than those coastal turfs, what else are you looking at in terms of your uncommon ecosystems for the regional council?
So what else have we got? We're helping with a project around the inland salines, which are really cool. So these occur in Central Otago, and there's these salt pans that develop.
Oh.
It's a happenstance with the geology and what the rock types are, and the low rainwater. So you develop these really salty pans, and then you get these species that are related to our coastal species, and some of them are the same, that actually like the salt and live in these salt pans, and they're very cool little plants. So there's a couple grasses, Puxinellias. There's a atriplex, so a little herb that's really cool to go have a look at. We're working with the ORC to help them develop some experiments around how to manage these systems. So they're invaded by weeds quite a lot, and so how to best control the weeds around these? And they're little tiny, so half a meter wide, a couple meters long, and so it's quite intensive in trying to work out the best way to preserve and look after them.
And why would we want to do that? What?
Well, else we'd lose these incredible plant species. So I'm going to ask me for a list, and I'm going to say the wrong numbers, and someone's going to call in. But anyway, I will get it wrong. There are a number of very cool little salt-tolerant species that only occur on these salt pans.
Right.
And there's insects and moths that are associated with them as well. So there's entire little ecosystems. And if these salt pans disappear, then you lose that.
Oh, and what kind of country do you find these salt pans in?
You go around Alex and around
the
Clyde.
rock and pillar kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's sort of open, rocky. If you looked at it, you would probably drive by and go, it's just a pile of rocks. Yeah. But if you got out of the car and got down your hands and knees and had a good squiz at it, you would find all sorts of cool little plants.
I think there could be a tourism market there, hands and knees tourism.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. But yeah. Oh, I did actually have a serious question there, but it's gone out of my head. It's fascinating. So you kind of think salt and water, coastal, so they're quite inland, but it's the rock.
So it's the rock. That's the salt's there in the rock, and how that rock is weathering and changing in the inland area that makes these little salt pans.
So do you think the plants pollinated there because of those, or have they been there since we come out? You might know the answer. This might be more a geology question. I don't know.
We're going way into my territory, Trudy.
Yeah, no, that's right. So how did they get there?
How did any of these things get there? Yeah. Who knows? I mean, adaptations over years,
right?
Over millennium.
Yeah. It's like they might have just moved inland, or
there's a few people you have to get on if you want to talk about salt pans.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. We'll get a list off you later, because that sounds quite fascinating. And I think it's kind of the micro more than the macro. New Zealanders, we kind of look at big things. We do big building projects, big dams, and we have big mountains, and we like to do big things. But this is really on the micro level, so you do have to get out there with your microscope, with your eyeglass thing, and get your geek on and have a good look. Yeah.
And there's an amazing amount of biodiversity in roadsides, in those what looks like blank cliff sides, and that rock piles. There's whole loads of things in there that are super cool. And so it's not just the trees, not just the forest, not just the big mountains.
So it's the school holidays coming up, and this might be a bit left field. So where would people go to find out what I could find?
The ORC is actually getting some really good website going. So they've started to put up maps and information around these naturally uncommon ecosystems. And you could go there. Who else has got? We've got a website around naturally uncommon ecosystems that helps explain it a wee bit.
So that's Manaki Whenua.
Yeah, Manaki Whenua, sorry.
But it's probably on the BSI website now, because our new website is up and running. Woohoo, people. You get the sack for sure. But all serious, if you just Google
naturally uncommon ecosystems.
Naturally uncommon, I think, I get why it's called that now, but I think naturally and uncommon,
Yeah, so they're called naturally uncommon because there's a lot of ecosystems that were once common are now rare.
Oh, okay.
And so these are things like sand dunes potentially and other things that humans have impacted. And so we've planted over them, we've plowed them under, we've put housing developments over them. And so they were once probably much more widespread than they are. And so there should be a whole list for them as well.
Right. So we have impacted those. Well, we know that we've impacted all sorts of systems, but so much so that we now have naturally uncommon ecosystem.
Yeah, so those are the once common, now rares.
Yeah.
And so our naturally uncommon were probably always uncommon. There are always those little edges, always just those little cracks, those cliffs and things. And so what makes them really cool is that you've got a whole lot of plants and animals that are adapted and live in those ecosystems and on those rocks. And so they weren't ever going to be widespread.
So they're kind of on a boundary between two perhaps larger ecosystems?
Yep. Yeah, so almost ecotonal. So an ecotone, so like the shift between one ecosystem and another. So those edges.
Okay.
Almost, but not quite. They're probably big enough that you can call them their own ecosystem.
But they're still, yeah.
Again, going back to ecology and scale and that thorny issue.
Yeah. Ecologists, right.
Yeah.
It all comes down to scale. So what else is going on then?
What else are we doing at the moment? The other big project we've been working on is around wetlands.
Okay.
So working on figuring out good ways of monitoring the wetlands, especially around Otago. There are some national monitoring guidelines for that, and we're adapting those a wee bit so that they work better for our Otago wetlands. And so we're working with the regional council to make that happen. Yeah.
So why do we have to adapt the natural ones? Is that
the national ones?
The national ones, sorry.
Oh, it's just the national ones are written more for North Island wetlands, and they're looking at things that matter more up there. So Otagos are slightly different, and we want to look at some slightly different aspects of them.
So is that climate that makes the difference?
Yeah, climate and different sizes and different scales and different types and different ratios of things. And this is coming back to like state of the environment monitoring again. So if we don't know what it is, we can't protect it.
True. And the closest wetland I can think of around here is the Sinclair wetlands.
That's a big one, yeah.
Yeah.
But you probably have one in your backyard. Ephemeral wetlands occur in lots of different places.
What's an
ephemeral wetland?
Sounds like that where fairies hang around the toadstools or something in the backyard,
Ephemeral wetlands are places that are wet at certain times of the year.
Oh, okay.
And so they'll be wet and dry, and because of that disturbance, there's a certain types of plants that will hang out there and that live in those wetlands, and they're really quite important for a range of little insects as well. So they're good things to look after. Good things. I've got a couple in my backyard. Springtime is a wet, soggy, boggy place, and it's got little mosses and lichens and different things in it.
Oh, yeah, they're the bits my husband always wants to drain, and I keep thinking, no, not necessarily.
No, you should keep them. They're cool.
I just remember to put my shoes on when I go to water the tomatoes, so yeah.
So we're working on wetland monitoring. What else have we got going on? Wow. We can think of... I think you're probably going to have these people on next week, but we've got a bit of a side gig looking at DNA drive and the bugs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time I look at that, I think, what on earth? And then I read it out loud, DNA drive. Yeah.
DNA drive. Yeah. But Amy and Richard will be able to talk you through that next week, and that's quite fun. So we've got some... You put me on the spot.
Because did you do your postdoc work in Australia, but did you do some on Ireland as well?
Oh, so we lived in Northern Ireland for a couple of years, and there I actually worked on a project called N-Algae, which was using algae as biofuels.
Like algae from seaweed?
Yeah, growing seaweed to make biofuel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How successful is it?
You can do it.
But whether it's commercially viable...
Yeah, it's a lot of effort, and at that stage it was early development. It's a concept that people worked on since the 70s and tried time and time again to try and get us off of oil.
Yeah.
So I worked on that project on that.
So was that using that big bull kelp, or what kind of seaweed was it?
Yeah, as a saccharina. So not the big bull kelps, but the big laminaria species. So the big sort of leafy things that
look like salads.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the greeny.
Yeah, greeny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you grow that on long lines. Yep. But yes, that was my brief stint into the aquaculture.
So plants underwater as well as plants above water.
Yes.
No,
It's much easier on land.
Drier.
Much drier.
It wasn't even particularly warm in Northern Ireland, perhaps.
No. Luckily, we didn't have to get in the water too often.
And
so we spent a very brief period of time there, and then I was in Australia for 2 years working on wetlands and wetland monitoring, designing how to best monitor wetlands. We're working in the Blue Mountains, so that was a pretty cool space to be.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. And a different kind of wetland again.
Very different. So these are all groundwater-driven wetlands, and one of the concerns around them is that there's mining in the Blue Mountains, and so if they crack the aquifers, they could drain these wetlands.
Right.
And so one of the things they needed to monitor, the mining companies needed to monitor, was if we had could be detecting those changes in aquifer levels with plants. So we're monitoring plants as a sort of secondary onto changing levels of the aquifer.
Okay, so they would be like indicated, like the canary down the mine.
Yeah.
So they were groundwater wetlands, but ours are not. They're more river-fed, are they? Well, I'm thinking about...
You have a big combination of them here. So yes, you do have groundwater, rainwater-fed ones here. You have all of them. We get a lot more rain here than you do in the Blue Mountains, so probably a lot more from that. But we still have ephemeral wetlands that are just rainwater fed that dry out in the spring. Yes, I'm trying to think of some good examples. If you go up in like the Rock'n'Pellers, there's some beautiful wetlands up there. The Catlins has some really nice wetlands if you're driving down through there. Where else can you go around Otago? If you go in towards around Wanaka and Queenstown, up in the mountains up there.
What about the back of Bannockburn?
Is that the that's not the rock. That's the Old Man, isn't it? The Old Man Range?
No, it's the
further
Old Man
along
between Alex and Paulburn.
My geography is getting horrible here.
So basically, you want to find a space that is, how would you describe it? Not a lot of vegetation. Well, except now I've learned that there's a lot of vegetation and tussocks, but, rocky outcrops, but...
Yeah. So we're going back to naturally uncommon ecosystems. They're the ones that tend to be rocky. They tend to look bare. You'd probably drive right past them. You need to get out and have a look at them up close. But where else could you go and have a look? Oh, have you been to Elephant Rocks?
Oh, yes, yeah.
So those are limestones.
Those
are limestones. And so those are naturally uncommon ecosystems up there. Go and have a look at them.
That's quite a nice trip, I have to
say. It's a very cool place to go check out.
It is cool.
Yeah.
And so what plants do you find in those rocks? 'Cause that's, calcium, is it?
Yeah, so they're ones, calcium things that can withstand. There's a couple grasses. You'd probably look at it and go, "Oh, why is that special?" But
it's because it's uncommon. People, you're like,
that's a grass.
We like the uncommon stuff.
It's uncommon. And you wouldn't think it was special. It's just a silly old grass, but it's amazing that there's only a couple known plants of it left, and that's where it lives. Is up
just
there.
In those Elephant Rocks.
Around in the limestones up around there. So
And of course, and then just bring it all back, and they feed certain insects, which probably birds or something else eats, and onwards and upwards it goes.
And that's what forms those ecosystems. So those interactions.
Connectivity.
You're getting good at this, Trudy.
Crikey, my sixth form biology teacher will be most impressed. She did take something in after all, but...
If Barb was here, she'd be going on about moths, I have a feeling.
Yeah, no, yeah. But, yeah, we hear you, Dr. Barb. Yes, moths as well and everything else. So what kind of pests? Do you have to monitor for pests as well? Because they must come in and disrupt, or not so much, because I know that's an animal side.
Oh, we do a little bit for it. So in the sand dunes, we're putting out chew cards to try and detect rats and mice and possums because they'll be attracted in by all the seed.
Especially in a big mast year, people, that's when there's lots of seed. I don't know that much. So they do get attracted, because somebody did quite a study on that at one stage.
Yes. So that would be it's truly outside my zone now, guys.
Yeah, no, that's an animal thing, but we just know that people have looked at the relationship between the masting and the rats and the mice, and
we know if you have loads of seed and loads of food, the rats and mice will come right up, and the populations will boom. And when that seed disappears, they then switch and will start eating native birds and other things. So. Yes, that's why we care about masting.
Yes, and and that's that's that relationship, those interconnections again. And then if there's no, and then you've got to watch out, because there might be ferrets or whatever coming, because they'll like all those rats and mice and that. But then they will then also have a bigger impact. So yeah, but we're getting really into the bird animal stuff now. So we'll go back to the plants.
You need Anne and Joe.
We will be talking to Anne and Joe, and we'll be talking to Anne about birds, and Joe when she comes back from the Australian Ecology Conference on whatever she was talking about today. So that'll be great, because I think that's the really fascinating thing about ecology, is the interrelationships and how you impact one thing, how it might impact something else.
And that's the cool thing about our office, is that we've got all of the people working on all those different aspects, and we bring all our different viewpoints and try and nut out these problems. And
so we've got a little ecosystem of our own.
We do.
So have I missed anything out? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think I've got all my plugs in there for all of my different off-piste groups. But no, it's been fun to chat, Trudy.
Oh, no, and it's been great to have you, Dr. Brownstein, because I don't get to call you doctor very often, but, you work hard to get these PhDs, and it's amazing to hear about how these things all work together, and the amazing work you guys do, and what's interesting, and, trying to answer the question. So, once again, thank you, Otago Radio Access, or FM, or 105.4. FM, of course, and wherever else you might want to hear your podcast, Spotify, Apple, etc. So that's us from the OI podcast for this week. Mati wā.
You've been listening to the OI podcast, the shout-out for the arts, sciences and mataranga Māori.
You can support this podcast by becoming a member of the OI. Check out the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences on Facebook or our website.
If you'd like to listen again to this episode or others from the series, look for the OI podcast on OAR FM's website, oar.org.nz.
Brought to you by the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of the Royal Society of New Zealand.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.